Dominic, I first want to congratulate you on this beautiful CD. When I got the tracks from Crossover, I was really interested in hearing them, and it's been a nice way to wind down at the end of the day. It's a very relaxing, very meditative, and very beautiful CD. I was looking at the booklet and I was reading about it. This CD, of all joys, it's really a product of the pandemic. Is
Oh,
that right?
absolutely. Yeah, totally. It's a reaction to, well, not being able to be together as much, and that the joy, the indescribable joy that we feel when we do finally get to play together. And, we went to great lengths to make sure that we were able to make these projects. And so, yeah, it's sort of a reflection of how we felt.
Mhm. I was in the booklet. I think one of the members of the Attacca Quartet was saying it was just they missed being able to play a perfect fifth with another member of the quartet, right?
It's
And
it's
just
true. Yeah.
sort of reveling in these wonderful chords and sounds. And you were going to say,
Oh no, I just yeah, and I think that was Andrew that said that, but I just remember the first time we had gotten back to rehearsing, with masks and all of the 6 feet apart and everything. I realized I hadn't heard the C string of a cello live for like 3 months, and I nearly lost it. I was like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. You take these things for granted. So
Mhm. Uh, the disc, it's a really interesting juxtaposition of minimalist composers such as Arvo Pärt and Philip Glass, but then you have them combined with music from composers from the early 17th and 16th centuries. What was the quartet thinking about when they put the rep together for this project?
yeah, I mean, we were intrigued by the notion of if we were to just close your eyes and not look at what the name of the track was, that you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell what century it was written in. So there's a sort of notion of time travel, but also of kind of exploring commonalities, across time. I mean, rhythm, harmony, melody, it's all there, and I think there's something, especially with varying degrees of overtness or intent. I think in the minimalist vein, you do have this kind of return to these simplistic or recursive structures. So I think we were kind of trying to tease out some of the similarities there.
And it's really really effective. For example, the first track of the disc is Arvo Pärt's Summa. I think it's pronounced,
Yeah.
and it's a piece that was originally written for choir. But when I was sitting and listening to the string quartet version of it, you'd be hard pressed to tell whether it's written from somebody from the 20th century or somebody again from the 16th or 17th century. It's really really something.
Yeah, and it's cool because actually, I think I remember just trying to do a little more research on the piece, and someone did a whole dissertation teasing out all of the mathematical relations in that piece and how the choices happen and stuff. So it's deceptively simple, but there's a lot kind of behind it. And of course, Arvo Pärt is known for really delving into a lot of early Christian sources for inspiration. So
Mhm. Can you tell me about the name of the CD? It's called Of All Joys." Um, my understanding is it's from this piece by John Dowland, "Flow My Tears," which is also on the disc. Tell me about the title of the CD.
yeah, this actually we brainstormed a long time to come up with this, and I have to give credit where credit's due. This came from Zach Crystal at Sony, and we were toying around with the idea of a quote, something, because so much of this of the disc is as you even the Arvo Parrot is either reworking of vocal music, or we were dealing with text, and how do we bring that out in the playing, and I think this is sort of all joys denied is the larger quote, and it comes from "Flow My Tears." So there's something ironic about it. It's sort of like this is it's actually a pretty sad song. It's about let my tears flow. All of my joy that I used to have in my earlier life, I don't have anymore. So I think there's something about sort of the juxtaposition of, well, it is an incredibly deep pleasure to play music together, but also to reflect the fact that we've all been through the ringer, the past 20 months. So I think that Zach sort of nailed what we were searching for in trying to encapsulate, yeah, sort of the dualities of this disc, but also the incredible depth of what music can do, whether it's
Mhm.
bringing you to tears or making you laugh or whatever.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be the most technical or showy thing. The majority of the disc is the opposite. It's just these beautiful harmonies and sounds and textures made from the four instruments. It's amazing.
Thank you.
The heart of the CD is the six movement string quartet of Philip Glass, string quartet number 3, entitled Mishima. Can you tell us about that piece?
Sure. So, I mean, again, this is another piece that started out its life as a film score. And if you, I don't know if you've seen, A Life in Four Chapters about Mishima. It's Paul Schrader. Um,
I saw the trailer when I was preparing for the interview, and so guess what
oh,
I'm
cool.
watching? Guess what I'm watching this weekend?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
you're in for a ride. I mean, it's a pretty intense movie, and it does so much visually that I think Schrader's choice of Phil Glass as the film composer, I think, is very intriguing because Phil's language is so spare, and so I think what you hear in the movie doesn't always necessarily correspond with what's happening on screen. I think that's the beauty of a film score. But in my mind, this quartet is really almost like taking the operatic suite or taking the suite from a ballet or something. And so it's what you get are six kind of emotional snapshots. And I'd be hard pressed. I'd love to have a follow up with you to see what you think after seeing the movie. How they reflect what's going on screen. I think when you remove the image, you're just left with these kind of emotional states. And I mean, they have kind of obscure titles, November 25th, Ichigaya, grandmother, Kimitaka. I mean, these are like, they have so much to do with what's happening on screen, that divorced from that, you're just left with, the play of harmony. And I think there's something really beguiling about it because you're just left with these, like they're tunes almost, I mean, you think
Mhm.
Philip Glass doesn't write tunes, he writes processes. Well, actually, no, he writes beautiful, beautiful tunes, turns out. So, yeah, there's something, and there's sort of its own, it almost creates its own narrative by itself, away from the movie.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a beautiful quartet.
Mhm.
Also on the disc, there are arrangements of music by Luca Marenzio, Gregorio Allegri, the beautiful Miserere, and Orlando Gibbons.
Mm.
They work so well on string quartet. Who did the arrangements?
That's a great question. We all kind of had our hands in them, and honestly, there's very little that's arranged. We tried to change keys. We tried to put it in. We thought quartet friendly keys, G major, D major. We ended up, I think, 100% of the time going back to the original keys because there is something wonderful about the resonance, that like F major, for example, in what is it, Egos Floscampi. We do a version that's in D major for live concerts because all four of us actually do play all, I think, what is it, seven voices or something. In this case, where you're using, and this is something, I don't know, it's not exactly a secret, but we do use some post production so we do some overdubbing, in this disc, and that's sort of, we decided not only should we keep it in the original key, but let's keep the integrity of each line so you really hear,
Right.
the kind of the harmonic rub and stuff. I mean, we did crazy stuff. We did some different tunings, some scordatura going on. So it turned out that the original with a quartet treatment was the best route, as opposed to trying to kind of fit it into a mold that it wasn't, that the music didn't want to necessarily exist in.
Right. With that kind of music, voice leading is so important.
Totally. And so it is funny to play it like the four voice version of the seven voice, Egos Foscampi, for example, because you'll sort of have half a line and then it like dips into another instrument. And that's a wonderful challenge as a performer, because you want to make sure that, yeah, again, the lines are coming across. But we found it if we had the opportunity to be, to have the magic of well, in this case, studio production. I mean, we were in a hall, but having, you know, the ability to overdub, it just made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, a lot of the music was written for originally for choir. There's the Fantasia by Gibbons, which my understanding was written for a viola da gamba. Did that
Yeah, concert
affect?
of six viols. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, six of them. So
Mm.
did that affect your interpretation when you recorded them? Like as you were playing them, were you thinking, I have to play this like a singer where it's very straight tone. There's not a lot of vibrato on the strings, or,
Mm. Mm.
I want to try and make this Gibbons sound as viola da gamby as possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we were definitely going for, especially in that there's this wonderful, this E string against the F. And so finding that rub, that tension, that really, I mean, a concert of viols is one of the coolest sounds. And so I
Yeah,
know as a group we were all definitely trying to go for that. And there is something to be said for, oh, there's the whole cliche of, oh, string instruments are trying to be like the human voice, but we took that pretty seriously in this case. And yeah, we're experimenting with non vibrato and with kind of different bow usages. I think Nate and Amy both were using Baroque bows most of the time. So
really.
we're kind of trying to go for that purity of sound, and harmonic rub. I think it's really about the rub of those intervals.
Absolutely. It comes across on CD.
Thank
I saw an interview that you did. I can't remember who it was with. It was a very extensive interview, and it must have been right at the beginning of the pandemic, because you were talking about it almost depend with the lockdown being almost like a vacation.
you.
and and
Wow.
so it leads my question. And in the interview, you said, you pick up your violin at times. When did you start? When did the group start to decide we're going to do this recording? And when did you start picking literature? And when did that whole process start?
Yeah, I mean that all started pretty quickly. We got together starting to rehearse in June, and then we had a number of albums actually, some of which are still not yet released. So we started doing a bunch of live broadcasts. I mean, that was the main way that we kept kind of sane
Yeah,
on
right.
this. Yeah, vacation is maybe not the right word, but
Yeah.
but vacation, I mean, as in being away from certain rhythms and stuff. Absolutely. So that was definitely adjustment. But we went into the studio for real life. But I want to say end of February, and then we got in planes and cars, and ended up going out to Indiana, to this hall in Goshen, Indiana, in early March. And so we were actually we were wrapping up, uh, doing like finishing touches on the first album, and then while we were actually in the hall making the second album. So that was March 2021, I want to say.
Mm,
So I mean, the all of this was in gestation from about a year before that. So once the pandemic really hit, I mean, we were like hitting the drawing boards, going, we what are we gonna do?
right, right, right. Uh, it's a beautiful disc, Dominic.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to wrap up the conversation this way. Is the group? Well, I think you've already answered that. The group is planning on touring with this rep
Absolutely. We
of
actually,
business.
yeah, we already have a bit. We just did a showcase in Berlin. We did, a kind of a medley of both albums. We're going to be again in Europe, hopefully in early February. And yeah, so we're definitely including it on our programs. We were just in Mesa, Arizona, and we did our this Jacob Clemens No Papa version, the four voice version. Um, in addition to repertoire from real life, some Caroline Shaw. I think we played some Ravel, so it's definitely part of what we're presenting on stage.
And my last question is, when are you coming to Canada?
Hey, whenever you have us. I actually, well, yeah, that's right. We're gonna. I think we had a rescheduled situation from during the pandemic. I think that's on the book somewhere. So I got to check the schedule, but I think we're coming. I think we're on the books. So love to play for you guys.
Amazing. Dominic, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me. This
My pleasure.
disc of all joys is just amazing. It's a pleasure
Uh,
and treat to chat with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris.